Okay, terrific. So this morning, today, we are excited to welcome architect and general contractor Zeb Jarosz. Zeb was born in Poland and graduated from Krakow University of Technology with a Master's of Architecture and Engineering. Post-graduation, he worked on restoration and preservation of a number of historic buildings in Europe, and that experience allowed him to learn and deepen his sense of order and proportion and detail. He's passionate about history and the evolution of architecture and its aesthetic shaped by social, symbolic, and construction technique factors. Zeb's creative work is frequently influenced by his keen understanding of a historical precedence ranging from classical to modern, and he is a member of the American Institute of Architects, Polish Institute of Architects, and the Royal Institute of British Architects. And I am very excited to learn and hear more, and I think Jason's gonna take the wheel from here and do a little interviewing with Zeb.
Thank you, Jen. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much, Zeb, for joining us. And Anna, really appreciate it.
Anna.
In addition, if I can just say a couple more points. I first met Zeb by door knocking about 18 years ago when I was newer in the business. I was just canvassing the North Grove area, and I left my card or some type of card. And he called me back inquiring about a property that he was perhaps interested in selling. And we've been keeping in touch ever since. And proud to say that he's just bought a property with us here at Keller Williams. So he's also a client of ours as well. So really, really appreciate that, Zeb. In addition to that, he just had the record sale in Coconut Grove. His design was the highest dry lot sale ever for a new construction property, if I'm not mistaken, over 8 million non-waterfront property in Coconut Grove. Is that correct, Zeb?
Yes, on Kiora.
Great. I saw that on social media. You were the designer and you led the construction of the Bimini Bay Resort, that big new Genting Group project over there in Bimini. So
yes, we were the overall project. Besides being architects, we were the overall project manager and also construction manager. There was a local contractor that we were assisting in performing. There was a Bahamian contractor.
Excellent. And then finally, I know you're doing lots of $15 million teardowns right now over on Miami Beach on the water, and you're creating new properties that sell, for up to 36 million. I've seen on North Bay Road, you had a listing. So when you're talking luxury, we're talking to someone who knows luxury. He knows the product, he knows the buyers, he knows the sellers. So if you've ever wanted to ask some questions to someone with this type of knowledge, we've got a great opportunity today. We'll have a Q&A session at the end from 11:45 to 12, if that's okay with you, Zeb.
Okay.
Great. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
I'm a Grovite. Despite the fact that I was born in Poland, I am a Grovite. As you know, I am an avid cyclist, just like you. I live in a 1920 vintage little cottage on the corner of Bayview and Maine that used to belong to Alexander Graham's sisters, supposedly. And there is an anecdote that I was told by some old timers that Graham Bell showed up for a visit, and in the anticipation of his visit, they installed a telephone. So the moment he showed up, he ripped up the phone off the wall. He says, "I'm on vacations. I don't want to be interrupted." So that's my old cottage that I have restored, but it's overdue for another restoration. I bought it in '94, so it's been a while.
So Alexander Graham Bell, inventor of the telephone, supposedly lived?
Yes. At least those are the stories that I heard from some old timers in Coconut Grove.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So you're a Grovite, you cycle, you do architecture. What type of architecture?
An avid sailor and boater, belong to the coral reef, and spend all my money on my old boat that is still floating.
Nice, nice. Question, do you find that you get lots of clients from the yacht club?
No, not really.
Yeah. Where if I were to ask you where you generate your business from, where would you say that comes from?
through referrals, and these days, a lot of also through, I mean, I would say that probably 80% of our clientele at this point is San Francisco, New York, LA crowd.
So they talk to each other and then they say, hey, when you're in Miami, you got to talk.
We really don't know. We don't investigate thoroughly how they got our name. I know that we are, when you Google Miami architects, we are featured on Google as well. I don't know how they find out, and we very seldom ask.
Interesting. So you focus on what you do and you have a passion for it. You do a great job. And just by virtue of that, the business comes to you, correct?
Right. Mostly through referrals. And as again, about 80% of our work is a design build, that we do design and construction.
Okay. So is that what makes you unique as an architect? The fact that you're not just designing, you're actually doing the construction as well, correct?
I know there are a few firms, design build firms, that you have the principal of the firm is either an architect or mostly contractor, but not both. I think I'm unique in this capacity that I am both licensed as an architect and the general contractor.
Interesting. So there's less moving parts and there's more accountability for you from start to finish if somebody hires you, correct? Because of that? Right.
It is small. I keep joking. I get all the blame and all the glory.
Yes, yes. So question, you hear these big numbers, $15 million tear down, the Bimini Bay Group, 36 million North Bay Road. Did you work up to that level, or were you always in, how did you end up in the luxury market like you are?
What opened the doors was I was referred to, and I did a house in the early 90s in Weston for Dan Marino. And that sort of opened the gates. Prior to that, I was doing a lot of multifamily apartment buildings, some commercial. It was a mixed bag. And then that was also around the time when there was a downswing in the economy. So I came to this sort of a rather simple revelation. Why don't I deal with people that have money? And that's what prompted me to pursue more of a hospitality and high-end residential. And also doing the work for Dan Marino that opens certain venues and certain gates, certain doors.
Yes, yes. So did that mean that you said no to other opportunities that didn't fit that new luxury mold? Is that how that worked? Like what you focus on expands, or did you go to certain events, or did you do marketing?
No, it was strictly word of mouth, just referrals.
Interesting. So what trends are you seeing right now in the South Florida luxury market? The other day you said to me, Grove, you're seeing buyers that used to be looking at the beach are now discovering Coconut Grove. Is that a trend?
Yes, I see a very strong trend of people gravitating towards. I'll give you an example. We have one client that bought a house that we built 20 some years ago in Hammock Lake. We built that house in the late 1990s. And actually, as a little anecdote, at the housewarming party, I met my wife.
Great, Raquel, that's excellent.
So there's a very good reason. So they are updating the interiors. It's they are adding a little pool cottage sort of for recreational purposes. It's mainly interior. They are focused on the interiors more than the exterior. They are very happy with the exterior. The other example was a very famous baseball player. I'm not gonna drop the name. Also, on Tahiti Beach, there was a property that we looked on the couple of properties in also for New York crowd at Camp Biscayne. There's quite a few. There's on Espanola, we just finished the design, and we're not going to be doing construction. It's done by another builder that bought the property with approved plans. And that's about 10,000 square foot, very modern house. I heard that it's a nice house. At least that's what I was told.
Nice, nice. So you're seeing people that are discovering the Grove, not just Miami Beach, but you're seeing some very, very wealthy people discovering Coconut Grove right now.
Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, the sort of a gravity is shifting, which was predominantly Miami Beach. For a number of reasons, prices, which I don't see really that much huge difference in pricing, because the property that we were looking at, the 1 acre that was, it was a remodeling job. That's the reason we were not really interested. But I think that the owner paid somewhere around $20 million for the one on Campus K.
Wow, wow. So you're not seeing a big difference in pricing anymore between Miami Beach, which used to command a premium, versus Coconut Grove, Coral Gables?
I would say that Miami Beach still commands a certain premium, but it is, people are discovering that the New Yorkers, the LA crowd, they are discovering Coconut Grove. Not to mention that if they have younger children, the private schools in the Grove are a huge magnet.
Interesting. So the private schools are a magnet for the wealthy coming to South Florida. Gotcha. Any design trends that are the latest design trends that you're seeing that you didn't see
Well,
4 years ago?
we are sort of unique in this respect that we don't have a sort of we are very often called that we excel in this so-called Mediterranean revival, but we don't have, I don't perceive us to have this sort of a signature style. I am very comfortable jumping from very modern to traditional to neoclassical to Mediterranean, and then sort of mixing and implementing certain elements of these styles in an eclectic fashion. And I think it works in many cases. We can show you some pictures of what we are working on.
Sure, please do. That'd be great. That'd be great. The screen
So
is all yours.
I've been waiting to see the pictures.
Right. These are just renderings of what we have presently on our boards. These are not finished. Oh, there will be one that we just finished, but this is on Alhambra Circle in Coconut Grove, a good old friend of mine, cyclist, also about 5,000 square feet, not terribly huge, but can you show the pictures, Anna? Anna.
Yeah, you're not able to see them? Give me 1 second. No?
You see little thumbnails.
Okay, let me start again. Sorry about that. Give me one quick second. Okay. Let's see if we can go now. Okay. There we
Okay,
go.
this is sort of a by the book Mediterranean style. The owner spends half of his time in Spain, therefore he wanted this sort of a very Spanishy. These are 3D renderings. Obviously, the house we haven't started. We'll be doing construction on this one. Then there's another one which is a very modern. The house is tilted. It's on Flamingo, but it's tilted. The second floor is tilted towards the view of the Pancoast Lake and has a nice roof deck.
Beautiful. So it's you mentioned that's a blend of modern with a little bit of Mimo 1950s.
Right. It has this. I always try to evoke some little veiled historical references, so that even that elliptical shape of the roof, that is very much Miami modern of the 1950s.
Wow.
This one is the one on North Bay Road, sort of tropical in style.
It's interesting. It blends the modern white cube.
Modern, right, with some tropical elements and landscaping and so on. It has this entry courtyard that the owners were asking for, and I think it's quite successful. They love it.
Gorgeous.
Again, New York crowd. So go then the next one, please. Okay, this one we just finished construction. That's on also on Miami Beach, neoclassical. We cannot show that too much of the interiors because of the confidentiality, but nevertheless, they got an award for the classical interiors from Black's magazine.
Beautiful. Wow.
Sort of white on the white, very, very just subject to decorate. It's more of a white background for decorating.
It seems like a few years ago, it was all about the grays. Would you say it's gone from gray to white now?
I never went through gray period,
No.
so I'm sorry.
Gotcha. So question, what is great architecture? What would you say constitutes great architecture?
What constitutes a great architecture is thoughtful subordination of, I would rather not subordination, translation of your client's wishes and dreams into the reality of architecture. I'm specifically addressing this in the area of high-end residential. It is a difficult task at times. We have clients that are very versed and at times very knowledgeable in the subject of architecture. But we have also clients that are not that knowledgeable and sometimes trying to, and this I perceive my role to be an educator, not to force the client into something that is against their wishes. No, my job is to educate the clients in order to show them the reasons why certain things are done certain ways. And I say that almost universally, I tend to be successful in this regard.
Would you say that's one of your strengths as an architect, is your ability to educate them and have them receive that education from you?
Yes, this is sort of unique, maybe in the US market or architects where the primary reasons for many architects to operate is sort of an ego almost, where coming from the European School of Architecture, we try to cater to the client. We try to educate, and that's why I perceive my role as an educator. Of course, back centuries ago, you didn't have much of a choice, because if you didn't fulfill wishes of your sponsor, sometimes they would cut off your head. Okay, in this case, it's not so extreme, but nevertheless, this is my, just working and translating the wishes of my clients. I perceive this as a role of an architect. At the same time, trying to introduce and inject my elements of understanding aesthetics as what is good and what is wrong. And again, this is my role, to educate the client in a polite, sometimes even subliminal way, to steer them in the right direction.
Understood. So do you find that oftentimes when you're designing a project, if it was up to you, you would have it be like this, but the client wants this? So you have to, is it a compromise sometimes, or you just go with whatever they want?
I try to get to the why. Why do they want something this particular? And I would say almost universally, I prevail, that I try to analyze not what they want to do, but why they want to do it. And once I know the purpose and the reason behind their choices, once we agree, okay, let me preface, once we agree on the language of architecture, in what style we work, then I have all kinds of an array of resources to show them that in that particular style, what is right and what is wrong, and also their particular wishes, how they can be translated in a correct way versus doing something that, in my opinion, is incorrect, as proven by a lot of maybe historical precedents in that situation.
So are there things that people, what are some things that people just don't factor in when they're designing a home, that things that are often overlooked? What are some of the things that are overlooked, and once the project is completed, they're like, oh my gosh, that was a mistake?
I mean, I may be bragging. I've never had a situation that I would have an outright mistake. As a matter of fact, I am probably the worst critic of my own work. So I sometimes see the mistakes where clients don't consider that to be a mistake. But again, I think wearing the contractor's hat is that the decision-making process is at times very difficult. And I warn my clients, jokingly saying, do not fall in love with your house during construction, fall in love after construction, because this is what happens frequently, that we start with certain level of finishes that in my opinion are very adequate for that particular project, and the client starts falling in love and they are raising the budget, the job starts slowing down or sometimes comes to a screeching halt. And at the end, in my opinion, we are ending up with the same, but at the additional, what we would accomplish otherwise, but with maybe additional 10-15% in cost overruns.
Okay, so you're saying stay within the budget.
Right, especially when it comes to the finishes, I try to insist on my clients trusting my level of expertise in this regard. I keep jokingly, if you delegate that to me, I'll get you 95% of what you want. If you decide yourself, you'll get 50% because I have a lot of experience in this regard, and I know where to literally open wide the budget in order to achieve that potentially desired wow effect, and where to pull it back.
Understood.
That's also is a combination of an art of architecture and construction. When you travel in Italy, in the Veneto region, and you go to some of the Palladian villas, you see the front is beautiful facade, and then you walk towards the back and say, they started running out of money. And that was several centuries ago.
Interesting. So they start with this grand vision and they run out of money at the end towards the back.
No, that was all done on purpose. That you just create that certain wow factor in certain areas, and then you apply some breaks because it's just, there's always been a budget. There is no such thing as no budget for any type of construction throughout millennia, through centuries.
Interesting. So we get questions all the time as real estate agents. How much is cost of construction per square foot? Say I wanted to build a new house on this lot, a $5 million, $7 million home. What's it going to cost me, realtor? What would you say to that in that price range?
Very, very high in residential right now. The prices probably start around 600 and up. That doesn't mean that you cannot build maybe something of the much more of a spec quality, which you see a lot of in Coconut Grove, maybe somewhere in the range of $300 a square foot. But the really true quality, and I keep explaining to my client, when I shop around, my cost of concrete is about $100 a yard, no matter how I slide it, a couple of dollars this way, the cost of concrete block, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to finishes, the range can be tremendous. You can have a $5 a square foot porcelain tile, or you can have a $50 a square foot certain slabs of marble. And that's where that's where it goes. The cost of the shell, no matter what you do, it will range between 60 to maximum $100 a square foot. But the range of the finishes can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Interesting. So the shell itself of the house is $60 to $100 per square foot. And then
it will be maybe 60 if it's on so-called spread conventional footers. If you go on pilings, then it goes up, but somewhere in that range. I mean, you know, obviously, if it's a more modern house, then you have those big slabs cantilevering and something elaborate, then it goes up. But still, I don't see anything really over $100 a square foot.
So that other $500 is all about the finishes, correct?
That's where the finishes, selection of windows. You can have the range of the windows ranging for the same structure anywhere, let's say from 200 to 1.2 million, depending on the brand and the style of the windows. The same goes for plumbing fixtures, the kitchen and bathroom cabinets. That's where the money is allocated.
Did you just say for the windows 200 to what? To 1.2 million?
Could be. If you go with Hope windows, which are steel windows, US made, very expensive. We are working on the project right now that we have the lower end ESW was, I think, about maybe 350, not 200, but Hope was coming about $1 million higher.
Hope windows. Wow, that's incredible. That's a high amount. So question, succeeding with luxury clientele, that's what many of us are aspiring to deal with, these kind of clientele that you deal with. What nuances, what guidance would you give to us to appeal to a $20 million buyer, $20 million seller? What is it that they're looking for? How to interact with them? What do they want?
They usually know what they want. They are usually self-confident, and then acting in a sort of a settled advisory capacity is the best way to go. Especially the younger crowd. There's a lot of 30-something, maybe early 40 crowd that is coming that is at times overly self-confident, but nevertheless, that's what they are. They are self-made. They were successful in their given field, and they think that they know at times than they actually do. And at times, this is their first home, first construction, first home of that caliber. So just, I think, advising them, but in a very, playing the game of advising, but at the same time, being careful not to ruffle their fragile ego is the way to go. I'm generalizing, but at times that's what it is.
Great. So basically what I'm hearing you say is suppress one's own ego, you being a very, very experienced and well-known architect. So you're going to, of course, sublimate.
In my case, it's maybe a little different because they already come to me because of the track record, the name of the clientele and so on. So they, plus I'm an old dog. You guys in your real estate business, if you are younger, just play it down. That would be my opinion. If you are someone with tons and tons of experience, that's a different story. Then you can come in a little more strong with, more affirmative statements and saying this is right and this is wrong. That would be.
But but if one is newer in the business and just basically be a consultant is what I'm hearing you say.
Be a consultant, right? And be especially with the younger crowd, be sort of sensitive to the fact that very often that's their very first, very expensive home, and they are deep inside, they're insecure, but they don't want to be challenged in that regard.
Gotcha. Great nuance. Thank you for that.
At times you have to, but you have to do it sort of going through a proverbial back door.
Understood. Excellent. So yeah, let's open it up to some questions from the audience here. Who has some questions they'd like to ask Zeb, an architect who deals with very expensive homes and projects?
Hey, I have a question, maybe because it's front of mind. I showed a lovely house last night. It was 1916 and had some historical value to it. And that happens often. And what does an agent need to recommend when someone's looking at a home, that has a historical record and requirements by the city to maintain that, as far as considering, renovations, remodels, what are the steps in those instances?
Okay, here again, I'm speaking in this regard from a direct experience because we've done it with quite a few projects, that if it's not yet declared as a historical, get the historical designation. What happens is there are several advantages. Since they wouldn't let you tear it down anyway, you might as well get the historical designation. That gives you a 10-year tax abatement on all the improvements. So let's say that you buy the house and you spend $500,000. Oh, they'll knock off that $500 from the increase of value of the house for the next 10 years. At 2%, that's 10,000 a year. It starts adding up, correct? Now, also another advantage is that you are not longer obligated to comply with the present day building code, because if you go with any improvement that exceed 50% of the replacement value of the house, then you have to abide with the present day code. At times, it's almost impossible. But if you have a historical, then you go by what they refer to as the rules of the Secretary of the Interior, which is basically tells you, hey, try to do your best, at the very minimum, try to abide by the code that was in place at the time of construction.
Okay, so yeah, it has a historical value already, and I mean, a historical designation already.
You know, I would recommend my clients to do a little more research, but we've done it on quite a few projects on Miami Beach, where on Miami Beach, the biggest issue was the houses were below the minimum flood criteria. And
Yes.
FEMA is very strict with that 50% rule. You go 50% rule, they'll go after you big time if you didn't follow their rules.
Okay.
Good
And
question.
then my other question was, what do you recommend for following trends and whether it's design or architecture for new?
Answering your phones, that's not a good thing. That's only Monday.
Oops, somebody
Louis.
put on mute. Is that Louis?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any publications, trade publications, design recommendations for just following and keeping on top of design trends and architecture trends, besides the obvious Architecture Digest and things like that?
Yeah, getting flooded with magazines in the office, so I cannot recommend. For something that is very traditional, I would say Veranda is a good source. Then for a mix, Architectural Digest. Then you have Lux. Lux is pretty good. That I would say that. But from our perspective, what we see that the crowd that we are dealing with, which is the newcomers from LA, from San Francisco, from New York, especially the New York crowd, they prefer more traditional interior, exterior, not traditional strictly, but more settled, more timeless exterior, and more contemporary interiors. And that pretty much, at least this is the type of a clientele, and that's the trend that we are seeing. I mean, some will go to something that was extremely modern, like the house that we're showing on Flamingo, but a lot of them, they're asking for something that is more, I would call transitional, but with timeless exterior, not necessarily heavily Mediterranean or classical, but more maybe based on certain proportions, symmetry, and then with the interiors that are a little bit more eclectic with a lot of modern elements.
Interesting. So traditional, timeless exterior, and then more of a contemporary interior is what we're hearing you say.
Right.
Interesting. So what other questions do you have for Zeb Jarosz, architect? Kathy, you're a highly productive Grove agent. Kathy Heidi, any questions for Zeb, a Grove architect who does a lot of stuff here in the Grove and Miami Beach?
Well, hello and good morning, everybody. I didn't know I'd be put on the spot.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, there's always questions on what architects, and it's nice because Zeb and I one day will be neighbors, right?
Yes, I am already, I'm starting sort of a strange way on that property because it's a small property.
Right.
So I am building the pool right now before I build the house, because otherwise I won't be able to get with the 5-foot setbacks on the side. How am I going to bring the equipment to? So the pool is in the process, and after I don't know how long we finally got the permits and ready to. As a humble, nothing. This was not where I was trying to show off as an architect. It's just a house for me and Raquel.
Right. No, it's interesting to hear you say that, because I have a listing right on the corner, Kirk Street and Overbrook. And what I'm finding is that some of the developers are rejecting this property because it's 5,500 square feet. So I find it interesting to see what architects, and it's the architects that are coming through and telling their developers no.
A little more problem because the corner lot, you have setback on the side. Instead of 5 feet, you have 15. But
Right.
how wide is the property?
So the property is 5,500 square feet.
What are the
Probably 100. It's long, probably 100 by 50.
50?
And same thing as our street. We have that block claimed the alley in 2005. So
You will end up with a house that is maybe 30 feet wide. It's doable. I mean, it's from the like a spec, the builder that they just rubber,
Yeah.
the cookie cutter, boom, 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 boom. Corner
Right.
situation is like, oh, I haven't done it. I don't know how to do it.
right. It's interesting.
Because you are losing, right? That will be just a lot that is in the, without the corner. You could build 40 feet wide by being the corner. You're losing additional 10 feet because the side setback, I'm quoting from memory. Sometimes I get mixed up with different codes.
No,
But this one I pretty much remember is, I think it's 15 from 20 for up to 50% of the width of the structure, and then 30 that will be on the main street, and the side street would have to be 50.
interesting. Well, we'll see how that plays out. It's definitely not a lot size like a Mafua.
No.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Great insight. So on her lot that she's talking about on a 5,000 lot, would that also be 600 per square foot construction cost if you're like a $2 or $3 million home?
Like that, you would be talking probably maybe 300 or even less.
Right.
Okay.
You'll be talking about simple finishes and resorting to. I don't have the pool of subcontractors to work at that level, and it is what it is in Miami. Sometimes there are some payments that is done. You bring some people from in front of Home Depot and you pay them directly. It is what it is. I cannot do it in my organization, so I cannot compete with certain prices.
Gotcha. So you're saying that like a $2 million, $3 million home, perhaps $300 per square foot construction cost versus a 15 to 20 million. That's going to
the house that I'm building on Overbrook, I'll be building right myself. As a matter of fact, I resorted to some local builders to recommend some less expensive subcontractors, because I want to keep it in about $300 per square foot, because it's not a warranty to spend that kind of money. I have about 3,000, so I'll spend probably $1 million on construction for that.
Okay, gotcha. Excellent. So who else has some questions for Zeb while he's with us here on the Zoom call? Architecture questions, market questions, luxury questions. So,
Hey, Jason,
yes, Mario.
how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you today?
All right. Listen, first of all, it's an honor to be listening to Zeb. I mean, it's really an honor. Thank you so much for taking the time and giving us this conversation and your wisdom here.
Thank you. I'm a sucker for flattery, so keep going.
So and congrats, Jason. I mean, you really made a lot of very nice questions, and it's been a very entertaining and informative session here. I have a question, Zeb. In your experience, please. I'm a resident of Coral Gables for 22 years. What seems to be for you the trend that architectural wise it's going to follow here in the Gables, and I would say in a mid price range, okay, not the very high luxury residence, but how do you see the trend evolving in Coral Gables?
I still feel that it will be continuation of maybe more settled and less overdone with detail, but Mediterranean, what I call, and what is the actual proper name, the Mediterranean revival that was very popular at the time when Merrick built Coral Gables. So that was Miami, Coral Gables, Palm Beach, and also Southern California. California were the centers of the Mediterranean revival, with the Californian style being probably more reminiscent what I would see of happening in Coral Gables, which is less adorned, was simple, more rational, but still in that Mediterranean style. What I see in Coconut Grove, that overabundance of those duplexes, just boxes and boxes, fortunately, it's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know that you're trying to withhold on that in the Gables. I like the terminology that you used before, the timeless traditional with the Mediterranean. But obviously there are changes that, what?
I'm sorry, when we started showing the pictures, I don't know if you saw, there was a house on Alhambra in Coral Gables, which was sort of clean, but it's still rooted very much in the Mediterranean Spanish tradition.
Yes, and that particular trend of how is that going to clash with the modern boxes that we're seeing all over, even close by here? But I'm in the South Gables and South Miami. That is heavily going to that ultra modern now.
I don't know if I am the proper judge of it because of my array of different styles that we work with. We attract perhaps maybe a little different clientele, not strictly. I mean, we've done modern houses on North Bay Road that got awards and so on. So we've done very modern stuff, but nevertheless, what I see the trend, and again, that trend might not be lasting, because this is majority of the clients that we have right now is the New York, LA crowd. They wanted more of a timeless look. As a matter of fact, when we started working on the design of that very modern house that we were showing, the owner wanted a more traditional house. And then again, during all the conversation and all this and discussing with him, we came to a conclusion that really what he wants is a modern house, not a modern traditional. So it was this process of analyzing the client wishes and discussing very different aspects of the project, and that's how it came about. But majority of the clients right now, from our perspective, is they want more traditional exterior, which doesn't have to be very traditional. It's more of there are certain proportions, scales, symmetry, which is applicable to any architecture, but definitely they are not attracted to these sterile white boxes that you see overabundance of. So that's my personal perspective. Whether that represents the general trend, I cannot assure you of it.
I appreciate your answers, and I leave for some time, of course, for the other guests here that have questions for you.
I am educated and in European style, where the aspect of so-called contextuality is extremely important. In other words, you respect the neighborhood, not necessarily repeating the architecture of it, but the scale, the proportions, that it fits the neighborhood. You can be talking different architectural languages, but there is a certain coherent feel to the neighborhood, and that's what I've been taught as a young student of architecture, that's one of the most important aspect of is the urban setting and the respect for the certain contextual aspect of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you. And so who else has a question for Zeb? Luxury architect who knows a lot.
Thank you. Again.
More flattery.
Keep going.
I have a question while everyone's thinking. I know of two houses that are modern in Coral Gables. One is on Lejeune and one is on Riviera near Coco Plum Circle. It seems to me that they're so rare to see a modern house in Coral Gables. Is that because of the city and their the Coral Gables rules, or is that just because, like you said, people want to keep the houses similar, more of a timeless exterior?
I think
versus Coconut Grove, for instance, versus Coconut Grove versus Pinecrest versus High Pines. Coral Gables is very it seems not modern based on what I've seen.
Oh, that's right.
I think it's part of it, but also is that people are attracted to Coral Gables because of the certain ambience and certain look of Coral Gables. It's like, give you again an example. The client that we have, young guy, 28. What do they want? They want very, very organized, very neoclassical house in proportion and scale. Again, with the more openness and more flowing interiors. 28-year-old kid, and his wife, they're the same age. They, at least on her behalf, I mean, she has excellent taste. The samples of what she liked was absolutely amazing. I was really surprised that someone that young had this level of refinement.
Is that a trend you see, like some of the younger population looking for that timeless type of quality versus modern?
Right now, majority of our clientele are in their 30s, early 40s, maybe. We have one client that is a little older. That is, he was transferring from New York, but otherwise it's mostly relatively young families.
Anyone else? Any other questions for Zeb Jarosz? So do you do all areas of Miami? Do you do Key Biscayne, Miami Beach, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, or are there some areas?
I mean, we've done work as, all the way from New York to the Caribbean but right now, obviously the market is pretty busy. So having my choice, I would rather, I like working in Coconut Grove because I can jump on my bicycle and go to my job site.
Yes.
And of course, Miami Beach is not that bad, but occasionally we do, like we're doing something in Jupiter, but that's rather an exception than the rule.
So at this point, you're trying to focus more on the Grove, Miami area, as opposed to going far out to another locale.
Right.
Great. So how do we introduce, so say we have a buyer or someone who's inquiring about an architect, what would be the best way to connect you to that possible client? And what is the ideal client for you? And who would not be a fit? Just off the bat, who should we not send your way if we know someone looking for an architect?
I don't have like an ideal client. It's a combination of, there is a very important element that I cannot really describe in specific terms, but for the lack of better word, it's a chemistry, the certain level of chemistry between the client and myself. And if you have any clients, I'll be, and they are serious, I'll be happy to give them my opinion, advice, complimentary. With this.
Okay, great.
At this point of my career is, yes, obviously I need to earn my fees and pay for the expenses of the office, but for me, even more important is something that I have a client that I have a certain connection to, and it's an enjoyable process.
That's a great level to aspire to. I think once one's been in the career for a while, just looking and picking and choosing what customers you work with. So people that you enjoy the process, that you have a connection with, is what I'm hearing you say, which must create more referrals. Having that boundary in a way, that connection must get you more business from like-minded people, no?
Yes, I mean, we sort of became also superstars in the Orthodox Jewish community, despite the fact that I am not even Jewish, but we've done a couple of projects and they love the work and the phone keeps ringing and ringing, and they are very good clients.
Great. So
basically, I very much respect their sense of tradition, of certain historical precedents. They are very easy to discuss those subjects.
Excellent. So what's the best way for us to connect you with a potential client? Is there a phone number, email? What's the number that we can put down for you, Zeb?
You have my cell number.
Gotcha. So just,
The email is fine.
okay. So the cell number, if I may, I'm just going to put that in the chat right now so they know how to reach out to you. Is that okay, Zeb?
Sure.
Okay. So his cell phone number that I have here is 786-271 7124.
Correct.
786-271-7124. Great. So Zeb, just what have we not asked you in this important time with you that we should have asked you?
You know what? I cannot answer that question. I don't know. I mean, there's so many subjects on architecture and construction that can be discussed that I truly cannot answer that question.
Understood. No, I appreciate it. I know it's a vast topic, architecture. Someone would like to have your email, so I'll put that in the box here. Actually, let's see if we have it right over here. I don't have it in
Zeb,
front of me.
Yeah, when I send out the recap, just so everybody knows, I'll send a recap to everybody and it'll include his website. And on that, I see all the contact information as well. So if you don't capture it from the chat.
Perfect. And while we're here, I'll also do it here on this CW Jarosz at jarosarch.com. ZWJAROSZ at jarosarch.com. That's your email. And the website for Zeb, if you'd like to see his projects and what he's created, it's
jarosarch.com.
JAROSZARCH.com.
Yeah,
That's the
if
website.
you Google our last name, usually we are right on the first page of Google with the listing of the things. So.
Perfect.
Right.
Sorry, this is Anna. I work with Zeb. You can also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook if you need any further. We also respond to messages there.
Thank you, Anna. Great to
And
know.
I'll send those handles out with the recap.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it, Zeb. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, everyone, for investing an hour to learn about architecture from Zeb Jarosz. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for all the flattery.
I'll see you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, all.
fun.
All right.
I think we lost a few people, Jason, just ending the call, but because I see the numbers dropping off. You still there? Jason? No? All right. If you're still holding on, I will send a recap to everybody with the video and all the contact information. And we are back on schedule next week to our normal schedule. So I'll send out notices to everybody on the distribution list. Have a good week, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Yael. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for
See you
joining.
next week. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.